Welcome back to another episode of Retail and Change. I'm your host, Joseph Lohmann. I'm joined today by Shane Colvin, who is the head of store transformation from PartnerTech. Shane, thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
I talked to you a couple months ago
Yes.
at Snacks, which is the convenience store show.
Yes.
And I asked her to come back because as much as we were talking about convenience stores, it was rather specific to that side of the market. And I wanted to talk and get your thoughts on retail in general. But for those who maybe didn't hear our first conversation, why don't we start with a little bit of an introduction about yourself? Tell me about your background. What brings you to this point today?
Well, I started in the point-of-sale industry over 30-something years ago. Started as actually at the technical level, from repairs and installation and training, and then later on into development of software for point-of-sale devices and things of that nature. Then I went on into the sales portion. Ran a dealership based out of Nashville, Tennessee for a number of years. And then about 8-9 years ago joined PartnerTech. Since joining PartnerTech, I did do a portion of time in the sales for the Southeast. And then a few years ago, I moved into this particular position that I am now as head of the store transformation.
And tell me a little bit about PartnerTech. Obviously, from your title, head of store transformation, you're helping retailers with their businesses become the future of retail.
Correct. PartnerTech has been in business for over 30-something years. Our core business is retail technologies and even hospitality technologies, from the computers and all the different systems that is needed for the point of sale. And especially as technology has changed, what that looks like changes. Mm-hmm. From where years ago it was just a simple computer, now all days up to the larger self-checkouts, to digital signage, a self-service kiosk, so all these different types of hardware, and in some cases software, to help the journey for the customers and the retailers.
And in your job, you talk to a lot of retailers,
Absolutely.
Understanding their needs, their pain points, their challenges, and some successes.
Yes.
What you're hearing right now, what is the main challenge that retailers are struggling with, trying to solve, coming to you to get transformational?
Well, a lot of the things that we've had is either a retailer that, one, wants to incorporate self-checkout, and they've heard the stories, they've read the articles in the news for the last few years, and they realize that there's times where people are saying there's loss to the retailer from theft or other means, or the customer journey is, it's not what they want to be. Or you have the retailers that have had and have self-checkout that had the journey interrupted, and they had to change, and at times by changing, they made mistakes in the fashion that maybe they lost profits due to thefts and other things like that. So the transformation process, in my opinion, is a very scientific procedure. How do we do things to where the customer, being the retailer, maintains his or her profit, mm-hmm. but where the customer or the consumer of that retailer enjoys the journey that they use the SCO and or the checkout lanes at the actual customer. So both of these are extremely important, because if we interrupt one of them, we could either lose money or we could have the customer journey diminished. And plus, we also want to make sure that we give the retailer the tools that they need to make sure they're successful in both financially and the journey. So a lot of the competition to myself, and even in this world, that doesn't look at both sides of it. They're just looking at one. We believe that the whole portion of the journey needs to be looked at. The retailer journey and the consumer journey.
Yeah, it can't be just one or
no.
one or the other.
No.
Otherwise you're setting yourself up for
disaster.
Struggles and disaster and failure.
Correct.
What technologies are you really focusing on right now as you're talking to these retailers? Give me some examples of what retailers should be looking at.
We look at several things for the technology. First of all, when you're looking at the portion for the hardware and software combinations, you need something that combines several elements. Single elements might not work for everyone. Now, of course, it also depends on what market segment they're in. So a person that is in the C-store business is what kind of technology they're going to need is going to be different for someone in grocery or even clothing and apparel. So, for example, let's take grocery or large stores that have multiple types of things, grocery and retail. You want to combine not only the things that we all know about, like a self-checkout with a security scale, but there's also lots of different AIs that you want to combine. Are they purchasing the right items that they're actually seeing? Is all the items that are in the basket been counted by the AI and made sure that they've been scanned and actually make it into the bag? Then also, does those weights match those same items? So when you have multiple levels of different things all meshing and combining together, you know that the products that were purchased was actually the products that were purchased and not things that slipped around and made it out without being paid for. But you can't lose the journey for the consumer at that same time.
Right. So how does a retailer know what that good balance is?
Well, a lot of it is with tools. Tools that will tell the retailer, we have tools in the point of sale system that tells you how much money did you make, how much profit did you make. But we need tools to help us with our journey. Did we look at the tools of how is us, the retailer, how is our attendants that are taking care of the self-checkout, how is the basket count, the percentage of times that help is needed or interventions are needed, how fast are those interventions, if we're having a lot of interventions of one type, how can we go back and look at these and reduce these? Because if we reduce the interventions and reduce the friction that the consumer is having and make that a more smooth transaction, that particular consumer will remember that, especially if they go to one of their competitors and it's not a good journey. Because if it's not a good journey there, they're going to say, well, last time I shopped, I used this self-checkout at A store and it was just smooth. But if I use it at B store, it's taking me 20 extra minutes to get out the door, and so I'm going to go shop at B store. And so that journey is what we need to also remember, not just what we have, but with those tools we can look at it and either fix it or improve it. Because the days of time of not thinking about what the consumer wants are long gone.
Right. And I think in some cases, consumers are getting overwhelmed with surveys.
Absolutely.
Anywhere you go, there is consumers. Is this an area where AI has the potential to help us?
In some ways, yes, because we can use the AI to do a lot of the things we need to collect the data of how that journey is going. So the fact of how did you enjoy using this particular product, or whatever question we might want to ask them, whether it's digital or either through an actual person, we can actually look at the statistical data of this person looked and started a transaction at this time, they finished at this time, they had this many items, how fast did they do it? So we can look at the statistical data and figure out that that journey was an appropriate amount of time, driven very smooth.
And by looking at that, these models, these data models, artificially intelligent ways to parse it out can help us understand the customer journey.
Right. The data is invaluable because the data tells us everything we need to know about that retail establishment, and especially if it's a chain store. We can look at the data and go, overall, y'all are great, but we've got this one store that's having an issue. What's wrong with this particular store? So we can go in, is it just a training issue? Is it, maybe it's environmental, maybe it's the locations. There's lots of things that we can look at to help that one store improve to be equal to or greater than the rest of the chain and go back and make that journey as well.
You had also mentioned there's a focus also right now. I think there's an opportunity to leverage the middle of the store, lack of knowledge, right? Understanding where things are flowing within your store.
Oh.
How can we solve that question? We'll know what comes in, we'll know what things go out. What about the middle?
The using RFID can definitely help that as well, because with RFID, every particular product, 20 pairs of shoes in the exact same size. They could be some in the back office, some out front, some in a different place. With RFID, we can know exactly where everything's at. We can track each individual pair, when they came into our building, when they sold. If one pair's been sitting there a long time. No, it's not. But we're not taking advantage of it in the U.S. in my opinion.
Why not? What's the holdup?
I think a lot of it's the tagging and the extra labor that is involved with it right now.
Okay.
Because it's not as convenient as a barcode. Let's face it, if we're any retailer and we buy products from a manufacturer that we're going to resell, whether it's a candy bar or a set of shoes or golf clubs, they all come in with one thing, a barcode. All the retailer has to do is put that barcode into their point of sale system. Nothing's coming in with an RFID tag. Once RFID kicks off a little bit more, in my opinion, from the manufacturer side, and they start providing the tags, and it's much easier for, okay, we got these 20 shoes in, they've already got RFID tags in them, and it's no different than receiving them by scanning, then it eliminates time. It eliminates the have to tag it. So I think a lot of the RFID advantages are going to come when the manufacturing portions of the world starts providing the RFID tags built into the products that they're selling.
Just like markets.
Just like markets.
And you said the U.S. is behind, which makes me think, you think there are other countries that are ahead?
I think Europe is actually doing a better job from what I can read and from what I've heard and what I've talked to people about. Now, these are all my opinions from the data that I've collected. But from everything I'm reading, that's what I see.
In an ideal world, what would the benefits for using an RFID system for consumers? Because obviously there's operational benefits. That's easy to understand. But for a retailer, are there benefits for a consumer to having this type of tagging system?
Well, for the consumer, the one thing is that it is greatly reduced. And you can take a self-checkout system, and with traditional barcodes and traditional items that don't have barcodes, fruits, vegetables, we scan, we AI identify them, different things like this. But in a traditional retail environment that had everything with RFID tags, as long as you weren't selling it by weight, I can literally take a basket and scan everything that's in that basket within milliseconds. So I can actually reduce, let's say that I can scan an item with a UPC every 2 seconds. I purchase 100 items, 200 seconds. RFID, 2 seconds, I scan the whole basket. So I reduce the time in which it rang up everything.
Which is a great experience.
Great experience.
I've used it before in Europe a couple of times. A little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of a learning curve, but once you understand, it was so easy. It was so
frictionless,
delightful.
But also secure, because not only did everything get rung up, we knew every product, even if it had a serial number, we knew the serial number of that product. And let's face it, time is the one thing in this world we can't buy more of. And so if I can speed up that journey from 200 seconds to 2, how many more people can you go through that line? How many less pieces of equipment do you need? Where a traditional store scanning barcodes, let's say that they needed 6 SCOs. Could we do it with 3 if I take all the time out because of RFIDs? So you have equipment differences as well. So it helps the consumer, it helps the retailer. I think it's just something that needs to be moved more and more, and I think we'll get there. It's just not there as fast as I thought it was going to be.
And you mentioned having more information in the PartnerTech than in the barcode.
Yes.
Serial numbers, etc. Who cares? What difference does that make?
It makes it for the actual retailer, because I can tell specifically, not when these 6 pairs of shoes came in, but each individual shoe. I can tell what each individual shoe sold. I can easily tell where all those shoes are at in the store. But let's also say that somebody brings back one of the shoes. I can tell that that shoe was brought back on this day. And let's say that the consumer just said, my son didn't like it. okay, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I can resell it. I can put it back on the shelf. So there's many avenues that the RFID helps.
And also recalls,
Exactly.
warranty work.
Right. So it's all, somebody wants to say, well, no, the warranty was a year and I bought this 6 months ago. Well, no, according to this RFID, it was bought on this because each individual item is tracked and traceable.
And we know exactly what the serial number is. It's interesting.
Very good.
What else is changing in the retail marketplace? What else should people be aware of?
Well, there's a lot of things that are changing in this world. I think a lot of it is going to be changing even more to digital. I think we're going to see less and less of, for example, the old-fashioned plastic credit cards. I know myself, all of us know about the wallets. This isn't nothing that's came out new, but I've noticed that especially in the larger cities, like while we've been here in NRF, and every morning I stop and buy something to drink or whatever on the way to the actual show floor. You go in, you don't see many people pulling out the old-fashioned credit card anymore. You see them using a tap wallet. When you go to cash, I'm seeing more people using products like yourself where the retailer doesn't want their employees have to handle the cash. For one thing, accuracy. That machine's going to be accurate where me giving back change might not be. So there's a lot of more things, security, but also ease of access.
So it's interesting as we focus on the customer journey, the customer experience, it almost becomes a little more fragmented for the retailer because they want to make sure that they're catering to the ways people, rather than put something into one way. You have to cater to what's appropriate for my customers.
Right.
Cash,
Well, it's no longer about, in my opinion, what the retailer wants. It's more about what the consumer wants. It's just like if I'm looking for upscale, latest trends in clothing, maybe I'm not going to this brand because that particular brand is just known for it's the same old thing and they're 6 months to 6 years behind in the styles of clothing. I'm going to go to this newcomer that's cutting edge. And that's the same thing that's working in retail. And a lot of people are looking at what's on that cutting edge, what's technology's coming. And there's things that even we can walk around here today and look at and go, that's unusual, that's really cool, but I don't know how it's going to work into the retail marketplace. And in 3 years' time, we might be going, how did we survive without that? This is the place to see it.
If you had something to do, it would be a surprise for all of us in 5 years, 10 years. New application of technology, new way of serving customers.
I still think, based upon that, it's going to be some form of AI or AI training.
I'm surprised you would say that.
And it might be a piece of the AI that we don't have even know about how to use it yet. And maybe it's a piece that we don't know what we're going to do with it. But I'm seeing not only in our portion of our business, but a lot of companies in multiple market segments and even different industries that AI is starting to ramp up and get bigger and bigger.
It's a good thing that we have people like you, PartnerTech, to help guide retailers to understand what transformations are available in their stores.
We appreciate that.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you would like to learn more, I encourage you to follow Shane. We will link him and PartnerTech in our show notes. And if you enjoy this podcast, I would appreciate if you would like, share, and follow us, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.